Hey guys, and welcome back to the third episode of Talking Spokes. Today I'll be joined by Brian Moore, who is a teammate of mine on the rugby team, the Seattle Slam rugby team. He's the founder with a couple of his friends of the Unbroken Foundation who helps get people in wheelchairs back on their feet, so to speak, with equipment, getting them back into sports, that kind of stuff. So we'll be talking about all of that stuff, including his injury. I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, be sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. What do you want me to see talk about? If you have any questions, that kind of stuff. And again, I hope you enjoy and try and learn something new today.
Chuki beat.
Thank you for joining me, first of all. I know you were going to Wazoo before you broke your neck and after. How was that, and what went into your decision to kind of go to Wazoo? And how was that for you? How was that experience?
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, I really wanted to go to WSU. I grew up in Oak Harbor on Whidbey Island, so kind of northwest corner of Washington State. And my parents they'd saved up some money for me to go to school, and the kind of rule was I needed to go somewhere in state, and so I want to get as far away as possible, and so on a map that was Pullman, and I was kind of looking forward to the party scene, and that was just sort of right up my alley. So I visited WSU when I was a senior, went out for a football game and saw Marshawn Lynch run all over the Cougs, and just had a great time. So that was kind of the place for me. It was the only school I applied to, and I got in. And so, yeah, I had a great time over there. I was there, 3 years, lived in a fraternity, and then moved out in my own place for a couple of years. And then I broke my neck right before the start of my senior year when I was living in Seattle. And then I finished up my last year of school online from home. So I actually have not been back to Pullman since I guess I was 20 last time I was there. So it's been a while.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a minute. You're a pretty sporty guy, if I remember correctly. So what were kind of some of the sports you did? And kind of what do they mean to you? And how did that affect your mentality following your injury, not necessarily being able to do those sports right away?
Yeah, so I played soccer like my whole life growing up. I got into snowboarding. I played a little bit of baseball when I was younger too, but mostly it was soccer. And then the last like 3 or 4 years before my injury was snowboarding. So um, I mean, I like to run. I like to bomb downhill on my snowboard and have fun. So I definitely miss those things. After I got hurt, it was definitely, it took me some time before I kind of saw myself as like an athlete again. I was sort of, I don't know, it seemed like that chapter was over for a while. And then it took me some time before I got out and just like pushing my day chair outside and just seeing how far I could go. And then, once I got going, pushed a couple of miles, I just started setting longer and longer goals, and just kind of working up towards pushing a half marathon was kind of the first goal that I'd really set for myself. And so I think that helped me. Uh, that helped me a lot, kind of progress and sort of like change how I saw myself. And so I think just kind of being an athlete before sort of helped me to like have that mentality post injury.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that definitely helped me with my injury, which is actually thanks to you, was the quad rugby team that I joined. So for me, it was because of you. What was your decision, or how did you come to the decision to start playing rugby? And what did the kind of group mentality and group effect of those guys there, how did that help you in your recovery?
Yeah, so I had come off. It was like 2 years after my injury. I made my goal. I pushed that half marathon, and then that was in like September of 2012. And so I actually came down to the Slam on the Sound that year, and I watched a game. I chatted with Eric Bell for a little while and kind of watched, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff, having just done this half marathon, and I was like, man, I can totally play this game. This would be great. And so it was, he told me to come on out, and I think it was about a month later or so, I came down to a practice and jumped in a chair, and man, I was terrible. It was totally different than pushing a day chair, but I loved it right from the start. The speed was different. I felt like an athlete again sitting in that chair. I had good balance. I could move all over the place. It was a total game changer for me. And then of course being around, like an actual peer group was pretty awesome, especially in the beginning there. A lot of people with, different levels of function, as you know, and all kinds of experiences that you can kind of draw from and learn from. So it was, yeah, it was huge for me, and great to get back to playing a team sport too. Just kind of helps with that like personal identity and the self confidence that comes with, having an outlet like that.
Yeah, definitely. Starting for me definitely made me feel like one of the guys again, just kind of being poked fun of, like in the friendly kind of manner that we all give each other shit is um, refreshing, not to being poked fun of by my family for sure, as I have been for last summer. Tell me a little bit about your injury. What kind of injury is it? What kind of function do you have? And if you don't mind, how it happened.
Yeah, so my injury was actually on my 21st birthday. I was living down in Seattle painting houses. I was living at my brother's fraternity that summer, and went out with a bunch of guys, and we went out to Fremont, and we're drinking stupid amounts of alcohol. I blacked out pretty early on in the night. I remember having like one shot of tequila at the bar. And then the next thing I know, I was waking up under the bright lights in the ICU. And so what had happened was I kind of got kicked out of the bar. Somehow I ended up kind of ambling off on my own, and I sat down on a curb that was kind of in an alleyway that was adjacent to the bar. Only that curb that I was sitting on was like it was above the basement exit and entrance to the building. So there was about like a 10-foot drop kind of on the backside of it. And so I ended up just kind of like nodding off or something, fell over backwards and dropped straight down this like 10-foot drop, kind of landed on my back. Fortunately, a couple of people happened to be walking by. They saw me fall. They were able to call 911, and I was on a pretty fast track right to Harborview and had my emergency surgery done. So I broke my sixth and seventh cervical vertebrae. So I got a fusion at the C6, C7 level. I was pretty fortunate. I've had some good like neurological recovery, so I've kind of functioned like C7, C8. Got a little bit of finger movement. So I'm lucky in that sense. I've got some triceps, and so I'm able to live independently. But yeah.
Yeah. What was going through your head in the days and weeks following your injury? And what was the process of coming to terms with this injury early on, through the ICU and the inpatient rehab?
Yeah, it's a lot for anybody to have to process, you were younger than I was when you went through it. I was certainly, at freshly turned 21, it was not something that I ever saw myself going through. It was a lot of it's a big change, and really kind of you sort of have to like completely reimagine how you see yourself after an injury like that. And so in the beginning, it's easy to get kind of torn down and like kind of feel like you're a victim in this crazy world. But then for me at least, it helped to just kind of like slow down a little bit, look around me, and see like all these other people that were there, in inpatient rehab that were they were dealing with injuries that were, some of them worse than what I was dealing with, and I had a lot of support, friends and family that were always there for me and helping me through this process and that big transition. And, there's people out there that they don't have that when they're going through such a traumatic event and such a big life change. So I think I was able to stay fairly grounded and kind of keep keep my head about me and sort of see the bigger, more important perspective there, that like, this could be a lot worse, and that, this is something that I'll be able to get through, if I just kind of keep focusing on little bits of improvement day in, day out. And then, I'll look up and I'll be in a much better place, a year from now, was kind of what I kept telling myself. And then just, really approaching everything I was doing with intention on, physical therapy and occupational therapy and all that, trying to just maximize the return I could get and the strength I was able to develop in those early days.
Yeah, what was the process to actually get your independence back through the physical therapy and both in inpatient rehab and kind of after you left the hospital? Was it just working out or specific fine motor exercises? What was the kind of process you took to be able to make yourself independent again?
I mean, I was trying to use my hands as much as I possibly could, doing anything and everything I could to build up strength and like any bits of dexterity that I thought were there. I just wanted to try to like improve it constantly. And then, I mean, same thing with on the physical therapy side, was just like trying to keep learning, getting better at transferring, trying to work out. Um, I had a new step um, I moved back in with my mom, back home. And so we had a new step show up there. So I was able to have that, kind of like in my room so I could jump on that. Um, and then it was several months after my injury when I started getting out and really trying to push my share as much as possible. So, um, I did the outpatient rehab thing from time to time, but it was kind of tough just being back up in Oak Harbor, being two hours with no traffic away from Seattle. And then, if there's traffic on a doctor's appointment, it's like a 3-hour drive each way. So I tried to just sort of take what I was learning and just sort of do it on my own up there. And so, yeah, that really kind of became my mentality up there too, was to just sort of be independent with it.
Yeah, and you touched on it a little bit, but one thing that helped me, and as you said, helped you, was the family and friends kind of helping you through this. Now with COVID, it's a lot harder for friends, family, and other people with spinal cord injuries to visit someone in the hospital, which can be detrimental. So how helpful was it to have those people there? And was it more of kind of just being there for you, or was there anything they helped you with specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, just general support is huge, but I mean, one of the things I kind of realized quickly on was that like, even though I had all this support, like at the end of the day, everybody else had to go home. They had to go back to their lives, and it was me laying in the hospital in my bed, alone with my thoughts. Like, there's at the end of the day, all the support in the world is great, but you've still got, you've got to shoulder a lot of the weight on your own. And so, but still, that support, I can't say enough about how important it was. And then like specifically, there's a lot of stuff that changes. You end up getting, they're applying for Medicaid and Medicare, trying to, deal with all these insurance, the changes in health insurance. There was, the renovation of the house, all that stuff. That was the stuff that my friends and family were able to do, so that really when I was in the hospital, I could focus on, just rehab and getting better and stronger and being ready to go home. And so, I can't really imagine what it would be like to have to go through all that paperwork and all those processes that, just to get all the background work done so you could actually go home and have a space to go back to.
Yeah, for sure. I almost went to Craig Hospital in Denver, which I'm pretty happy I didn't, because being in Seattle allowed me to have friends there and all that. But a lot of stuff, like you mentioned, I just didn't even know was going on, like the renovation of the house. And just, I mean, we had a elevator shaft in our house before I broke my neck, which is just incredibly lucky. So we could just throw an elevator shaft in. That's, yeah, something I don't consider very often. Do you think there's anything that could have been done better by you or the hospital, whether it's being more motivated to get out of, do therapy and all that? Because one thing I struggled with was motivating myself to kind of get up and at them and really improve my function. How do you think you did with all that in the hospital as well?
I think I did pretty good in the hospital. It was you know, there, of course, there's some ups and downs. That's kind of the nature of life, really. But um, yeah, I think I definitely, especially that first year, had some downtime where I probably could have been more productive. Once I got home. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the way it is. I mean, I guess I was still processing a lot at that point in time. So even that downtime, looking back, where it's like maybe I could have done it better, well, at the same time, maybe I needed that downtime to kind of, work through some stuff on my own. So, um, I don't know. I try not to look back and like second guess, too much about life. It's, you know, stuff happens and here we are. So it's just kind of a matter of like figuring out the best way forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the actual inpatient rehab was not as intensive as I would have liked, and I didn't really find that good intensive workout rehab until I started pushing boundaries because it really pushed my limits of function and stamina and all that. But I mean, like you said, there's not much you can change about it, and we are where we are. As you were starting to get your life back on track, you mentioned going to school online. What was the process and your thought process about really getting back into the groove of things, like getting a job? When did you start looking for that? Again, like we talked about sports, but how was that from a actual um, job, school, all that kind of stuff standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, starting with school, like my injury was on August 7th. I think school started like August 20th. So it was like real quickly, like, I obviously wasn't going to school that semester. So I had that semester off, but, you know, by the time the second semester of that year started, it's January and I've been at home now for a couple of months. And so I was talking with my advisor and I was like, I was ready to go. I needed something to do. I needed an outlet. And so um, I wanted to just like jump right in and, go into like a full load of classes. But, they kind of talked me down from doing that. And so I think I took two classes back my first semester and then I ramped it up in the summer session and then I ended up finishing the next year. Um, so I ended up only graduating, a year later than I would have. So it was just one of those things where I really wanted to get back and I enjoyed having something that I could focus on and stay busy with. Um, at the same time, I had some friends the first year when I was in the hospital that they wanted to do a fundraiser and put together a golf tournament that eventually ended up raising about, I think, close to $10,000. And they wanted to give that to me and to my family to help with the renovation costs. But from a small town, and there was a lot of community support, after my accident. So my family didn't need the money for any of the renovations or anything. So I thought it'd be good to donate it to Harborview and to UW and to a new program that they had going on at the time that was specifically for helping people transition from the inpatient rehab setting back to the real world. And so um, over that 2 year and a half period where I was going to school, I was also working with these two buddies of mine to sort of kind of fine tune this idea of like a nonprofit foundation and doing some of these charity events. So between the school and that, I was pretty occupied. At the same time, I was, ramping up to do this half marathon thing and got into rugby shortly after that. So, I was busy. I wasn't real motivated to figure out the work thing. I knew I would eventually, and it was something that was certainly on the back of my mind. I didn't want to live up in Oak Harbor forever, and I needed to get out of there at some point. So, that kind of came, I don't know, that came a little bit later. I started figuring out kind of some, short term, like remote kind of like contract work stuff that I was doing here and there. But yeah, I think I eventually ended up moving out of there in like 2013 and coming down to Seattle. And that was when, stuff really started to change for me.
Yeah, I think one thing that was pretty different was that I actually did not want to go back to school at all. I was for those first 6 months. I got out of the hospital like May or something. So that summer, I was just indoors all the time, and I was not like ready to go back to school. However, when I did go back to school at high school for my to finish my junior year and then my senior year, it actually helped me a lot. And I had the perfect balance of school and working out and stuff. But yeah, I didn't even realize how much it was going to help. Was it hard from a social standpoint, kind of keeping on that track? Was there any like awkwardness with friends, or was it pretty seamless transition socially into the spinal cord injury life?
Um, I mean, it depends, like I guess some of those relationships, it's pretty easy. Other ones, kind of were more difficult or, they just kind of cease to be. So, um, again, that sort of happens to everybody over time. You lose contact with people and, you make new people come into your life and all that. But yeah, I think like the relationships that really mattered, those were the ones that, I think got stronger with my injury, and then the ones that didn't really matter as much were the ones that kind of disappeared. So, it was a, I guess, it's kind of silver lining is you really kind of see like, what what the things are that matter and who the people are that matter, when you go through something like that.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on it a little bit, but you started the Unbroken Foundation with a couple of your buddies. What is the Unbroken Foundation, and what does it do? What's your mission, if you will?
Yeah, so our mission is to kind of improve the outcomes of individuals with spinal cord injuries, to kind of empower the individual. And so, over the years, we've done that in a number of different ways. In the beginning, we really supported that transitions program at the University of Washington and Harborview. They had a lot of different programs, and they had a lot of physical therapists and doctors, and they had just like all the infrastructure in place to really reach people and have some positive impact. So, the money that we raised for that program was able to do things like get people back on the road driving, and it helped them, get skiing lessons or get back one-on-one like swimming lessons, getting into hand cycling or kayaking, and so that was sort of where we focused for the first probably 4 or 5 years, and then eventually we got into kind of supporting more local groups, sports teams, trying to like kind of get down to a more grassroots level once that program at the university kind of disbanded. And then kind of looking forward, we're looking to start up a kind of like accessible fitness center, really just like an inclusive place that people of all abilities can come and work out at, a place where they can sort of, depending on what their comfort level is in a gym, have access to assistance if they need it, be able to do some training or classes or whatever they need, kind of like a really sort of go at your own rate, kind of place that's got a lot of different options as far as equipment goes that people with all kinds of mobility impairments can use. There's really nothing like that in the Seattle area. So, we're kind of in the early phases of trying to get that going. So that's sort of another little fun project to work on in the next couple of years.
That's an awesome project. How did you decide to start a foundation? Were you thinking about it before that? Did you always kind of know, or was it kind of out of the blue following that golf tournament? I believe you said it was.
Yeah, so it was, they did that first golf tournament, and we were able to make a $10,000 donation, and that felt really good. That was a fun thing, but I don't think it really had clicked with any of us that we wanted to do it more, more as like a full-time thing. But it was a couple of months later, I had the opportunity to go out, to a really massive fundraiser out on the East Coast, that the Travis Roy Foundation was doing, which was their annual wiffle ball tournament. And that was in 2011. It was right at about a year after my injury. And I got to go out there. I met Travis, and I met all the people that kind of run that foundation. And we watched this amazing event. We saw them raise a couple $100,000, and, just kind of doing some reflecting that weekend, really thinking about, like, wow, like what a cool thing that these guys all started. And my friends from the foundation, they were out there on that trip with me, so we all were kind of inspired and motivated to do something bigger after that weekend. And so that really was kind of like the genesis of the idea to move forward. And so we started brainstorming names for a foundation, and we talked to with the CPA friend and figuring out, the paperwork that we were going to need to do. And, we got together one weekend and put our heads together and knocked it all out. And then, yeah, that was really where the Unbroken Foundation was born. So yeah, that was in 2012 when we got that fully launched and ready to roll.
Was that a hard process to actually get it started? And what were some of the challenges? Was it a lot of figuring it out, or was it kind of seamless and easy to kind of, paperwork, whatnot, whatever it takes to start a foundation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't that bad because we had a good friend that was able to help us out with all that paperwork. He had done it before, and so we had the CPA that had all the expertise. We were able to kind of pick his brain, and he was able to serve as a guide for us as we went through and did all the paperwork and wrote our bylaws and got all of our articles of incorporation and everything established. It's definitely a long process, and there's a lot of like T's to cross and I's to dot. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's a good amount of work to do though. But yeah, it was totally worth it. And at that point in time, especially, like my injury was still pretty fresh, and so we had a lot of people in our lives that were like still connected with kind of like my story and what had happened. So we had a lot of support at that point. So there was a lot of good energy around that was easy to tap into when we were first starting that fundraiser or starting the foundation. And when we needed to do fundraisers, we had a lot of people that we were able to kind of draw from, and that were super willing to help out. So yeah, it was a good thing timing wise as far as getting that thing going.
Yeah, for sure. One of the, I think, good things that it helps with is like you said, the equipment and kind of figuring out what someone needs, like to get back on the road and all that. Since you didn't have the Unbroken Foundation around when you did get out of the hospital and started to try and figure out those things, like the equipment you need, shower chairs, whatever, even like sports or pushing your day chair, was it hard? I'm not sure if you had like a mentor, like sort of like you and the rugby team were to me, but did you have anyone to kind of help you and guide you in knowing what you needed to become more independent in those tasks? Or was that
Yeah.
a pretty difficult process?
Yeah, I mean, there was still a lot of good therapists at Harborview that were able to help me out with a lot of that. I did make one contact in particular through the mentoring program at Harborview, who I learned a lot from, and that was huge. But the transitions program that we ended up supporting, that program started right when I was there, so I was able to kind of be a sort of beneficiary of that program, with stuff like the driving and the swimming and the skiing and all that. So I was able to kind of see firsthand like how impactful that all was, which was a big reason why we funded it. So I did have a lot of help in that regard. So yeah, it was definitely nice.
Well, Brian, that is all I really have for you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man,
joining.
I'm happy to help out. I'm glad you got this project to work on. It's a super cool idea.
Thank you. Well, happy Thanksgiving from the Broussards.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. Say hi to your family.
For sure, we'll do.
Alrighty, see ya.
Bye. So that was episode 3 of Talking Spokes. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you guys did, leave a comment, subscribe, and like the video. I will see you next week for episode 4. Thank you again for being here.